This didn't happen to me but my cousin. She remembers being home alone when my aunt, uncle, and two cousins were at a go-kart racing competition and weren't expected home for hours. Well, while my cousin was upstairs in her bedroom, she hears the unmistakable sound of someone unlocking and opening the front door, downstairs, and she hears my aunt call out to her and start to climb the stairs. My cousin could hear her mother's voice getting louder as she approached the top of the landing, saying something along the lines of, "Where are you?" My cousin suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable, and her stomach dropped in fear and confusion. She recalled the voice sounding emotionless and flat like it was her mother's voice, but without any of the usual softness it usually had. It had felt unnatural and wrong. Then, to my cousin's shock, my aunt just texted to say they wouldn't be home until late and to go to our grandparents down the hill, and they would pick my cousin back up on the way home. So who had come up the stairs? My cousin crept out of her bedroom door and checked the rooms upstairs and found nothing. She then went downstairs and saw the front door was still bolted and locked. My cousin then took off to our grandparents, where I was staying over, and recounted what happened. She was white and shaking. My cousin told her family later when they came to pick her up, which ended up with even more creepy revelations still. Apparently, my oldest cousin, whose room was downstairs next to the front door, would often hear loud thuds coming down the stairs as if someone was running down them at speed, then abruptly stop at the stairs bottom. Only Noon would be home. My youngest cousin would see, who he thought was his mother, checking up on him at night by peering him in the gap of his bedroom door. Only my aunt denied ever doing this. He even said his mother would call out good night, but not in her usual voice.
My first house was set up where it was a straight line of vision from the living room, through the kitchen, through the small laundry room, to the back door that led into the garage. All of those doors stayed open, and the only doorknob that was visible was the one on the door leading to the garage. I got up one night and went to double check the alarm was on. When I hit the doorway between the living room, the kitchen, I noticed the doorknob on the door to the garage was reflecting light. A lot of light. As I stood there trying to process where the light was coming from, the doorknob floated towards me to the middle of the kitchen. It was not a doorknob, but something quite similar to a very large silver bubble. The bubble hovered in the middle of the kitchen for probably 10 seconds, felt like a lifetime, and then drifted up into the kitchen ceiling. That house had quite a few odd things happen in it. That was the scariest to me.
I have bad eyesight, like I can't see less than a foot in front of my face without my glasses, contacts. So about a decade ago, I was staying in a hostel in Taiwan with two buddies. The room had 4 beds in the form of 2 bunk beds. I was bottom bunk and my one friend was directly across from me on the other bottom bunk. I had assumed my other friend was sleeping in the bunk above me. So when I woke up at around 5 a.m. and saw a head hanging down from top bunk, looking at me, I didn't think much of it. It wasn't until 7 a.m. when we all 3 got up for real that I saw my friend climbing down from, not the bed above mine, but the parallel top bunk. I asked him if he slept there all night, and he assured me that he had. In other words, whatever I saw leering at me at 5 a.m., it wasn't my friend. To add to all this, said friend claimed to have had a very disturbing dream in that hostel. In the dream it looked just like our hostel room, but the door opened and a kind of vampiric-looking entity entered the room. Anyway, as I mentioned, I have bad eyesight, which in this case may have been a blessing in disguise.
Telepathy exists. I had a temp job stuffing Halloween costumes into plastic bags while standing at a table in a warehouse. One night it was so tedious that I thought real hard to my friend, call me at 12:15 over and over. Well, they let us off early, so I was home by midnight. 12:15 on the dot, she calls, saying, I had to, you were so damned loud about it. Once, at a friend's house, he was writing up a set list on a Grateful Dead tape he had just received. He was still a new deadhead, so didn't know all the song titles yet. When one came on, he asked me the name, and I just thought it at him. He said thank you and wrote down Scarlet Begonias. Oh, while at a Dead concert in Berkeley, my best friend had to miss the show and stay in Livermore, 35 miles away. But it was the best show I had been to, and I was determined that he wouldn't miss it, although he was listening on the radio. During one song, Ship of Fools, I intentionally reached out to pull him to the show. I also intentionally told no one that I was doing so. A few days later, back home, my roommate and I were on the phone with him, talking about the show. Yeah, during Ship of Fools, I thought I was seeing the show through your eyes, but I lost contact with you when you sat down. Yeah, man, sorry about that, but I had to sit to change the film in my camera. Avium. Those are only 3 of many examples of telepathy I have experienced. Had I been able to do it on a consistent basis, I would have won the Randy Prize.
I've never shared about the haunted house I lived in until now, but for some reason it feels like time. It was the middle of a mundane day almost 9 years ago. I was sitting on my bed reading on my phone. I glanced up, and a lamp that had been sitting on a table across the room from me started to move forward across the table towards the edge on its own. It then fell off the table. It took me a second to register that no one was there to push it, and that it shouldn't have been able to move like that by itself. It was one of those lamps with an adjustable neck, so you would have to position it and make sure it was balanced for it to stay unmoved. It had been sitting on that table for months. Plus, if it was unbalanced, it would have just fallen over, not slide forward and then fall off the table. It was weird. One of the many creepy things that happened while I lived there. Honestly, a more mild one than most of the other stories.
I was in the, I want to say, 3rd grade. I woke up the light from the other room on, and on the ground a figure crawling towards me. To this day, I don't know what happened. The conclusion I came up with was that I was experiencing a form of sleep paralysis. But Kate, another story. It was fall, so it was a little chilly outside. But I opened my window and fell asleep when I woke up. I swear to everything I hold dear. There was a handprint on the window. There was bug mesh to keep mosquitoes, flies, or whatever else out, so it was physically impossible for me to put that handprint there. Final story. During the summers, me and my sister would watch Netflix to pass the time when our parents were working, and it was pretty much the bonding experience I've had with her. Anyway, we were watching Pretty Little Liars. I needed to get something from my room while I was getting what needed. I hear a knock on my bedroom door. My sister was on the couch, and it was old and squeaky, so if you went off it, you would hear it, and even if I didn't hear her coming for the couch to my room, I would have heed to hear her footsteps to my room. When I come out of my room, she is sitting in the exact same position as was before I went in my room. I asked her, "Hey, did knock on my door?" and she responded, "No, if anything, I should be asking you if you knocked on your door." Turns out that she heard the knock coming from inside my room. We were confused, suspicious of each other, and a little bit scared. And ever since I was convinced that our house was haunted,